Hello everyone, welcome to another video. My name is Haddock Monster. Welcome to this video of me explaining my song Aspiration, the summer edit. This is the short version, of course, and as usual later on I'll be explaining the extended mix. For now, let's just listen to the song first, because I know there's people out there that have never heard this song before, or they probably don't even know about this coming out. The story behind this song really is, it was supposed to come out on my birthday, but it didn't happen because my distributor or distribution root note had like a lot of submissions, so I had to wait in line. And at some point it was my turn, so here I am now, and now the song is finally out, and it was supposed to be out on the 31st of July. Oh well, it's finally here now. For the people that haven't heard the song, I'll just play it to the drop. And if like the second part of the drop hits, we'll get into the track. So I said the second drop, but I meant the second part of the drop. And for people that don't know the original one, I'll only play the drop. Of course, I explained this song as well. Polypotch at the moment while you're watching this, it will probably pop up on the screen, so you can also check out this one. But if you want to check out this version, that's totally fine too. Let's just get started with the first thing I did, which is the chords. Like, this song has a lot of elements from the original song. It's not too different. I just tweaked it a little bit and changed some sounds and made some changes. So, for example, you have this chord progression playing in the start of the song. Let's go here, the sidechain. You hear this play in the original song too. It's pretty much the intro chords from the original one. So this is pretty much a homage, pretty much, because a lot of people liked the original one. So since a lot of people like the original one, I thought, let me just keep this sound in, because a lot of people liked it. So I thought, let me just keep it, because it sounds good anyway. So that's that, and then I added a reverse sound to it, which is pretty much the chord sound but reversed. You can even see it as like this little uplifter, and like pretty much go every time like the chord hits. That's pretty much when the sound like reverses again to restart the song. However, it's not entirely on beat, and that's because to kind of keep it groovy. You know, like I know groove this early in the track. A lot of people will probably be like, "Bro, why this early?" Well, the reason for me is really that I wanted to make the intro part as dreamy as possible, and yeah. So yeah, I'll just play that part. Just play the sound real quick. That's it. That's all it does. So if I turn this off, this is all you will hear. And then we just play it together. Yeah, if you can probably hear it, you hear like this sweeping sound. It's kind of like sweepy in a way, like if you listen closely. So that's that, and without the sound, it sounds like this. So that's that, and of course I added the ARPs from the original one. Okay, so let's get to that part. I hope that wasn't too loud for anyone. I'll turn it down a bit. So we have this part then. Okay, so this part really is just parts of the drop melody, of the previous drop melody. Drop melody from the original version. Like I have this playing near the end, when the song is like ending in the original song. But I thought, let me just start this intro with this sound, since in general it sounded very dreamy, and it's just these two notes playing. Raw notes. That's it. And of course there's some delay on top of it, and there's this automation that like adjusts the volume, so every time like the song plays it cuts it off entirely. And also the delay, because if I keep the delay or just keep repeating, which would make the song entirely messy. And the mix as well. In general, of course, we switch to this. Of course, we have this piano playing in the background, but it's like giving like a little texture to this, because it's pretty much the same melody but like chopped up a little bit. So it's like playing in the background to like give it that more depth, because that's also why I have these sounds here, these reverse sounds, to give it more depth. Otherwise it will sound so bland. And since I was going for a summer theme, a dreamy theme, trippy theme, I thought, let me just make it even more dreamier by adding certain sounds. And of course we have this playing over here. One of the chords from the OG song is, of course, it's the same chords, same sounds, just the filter is turned off. Or as you can see, the filter is opening up. You can even hear it. You can even hear it, the filter is opening up. So it's pretty nice. We have this playing as well. Pretty much the same thing as this. Like as you can hear, it's a lot of same elements from the original song. Because like I said, it's a remix. So the song should be recognizable in a way. If it's not recognizable, what's the point of calling it a remix, you know? I could make it an entirely different song. But I kept the same elements, so it remains as the original song, but like edit. Because that's why it's also called an edit. Because I made some adjustments to the song. Then I have this playing here. Pretty much the same thing, really. Then I have this. My classic sound I use in almost every song. I used it in Journey. I used it in Journey. I used it in Freedom. I used it in Nostalgic. I used it in Euphoric. I used it in the past. No, I didn't use it in the past. But in general, there's many songs I used this sound in. So if you pretty much hear the sound, you'll probably recognize it already. Because it's the preset I use the most. But yeah, it's pretty much, I kept this preset. Because like I said, in the original song, you had this playing too. Like I said, it has to be a remix, not an entirely different song. So we have this. Which pretty much started the OG song, but instead I flipped it with this Rhodes playing. Cause I thought the Rhodes would be a better idea and it would sound more chill. Like, I'm not saying this is not a chill sound, you know. I'm not saying it's not chill, but it would, like, you know, shake things up a little bit. So then I have this, of course, the same sound from the OG song. Don't need to explain much there, cause like I said, a lot of elements are from the OG song itself. And then we have this sub playing. It's a preset in Serum. A lot of people probably know this plugin, especially if you produce. Then we have these playing in the background, like I said, and of course these layers. And the clap I use in pretty much every song I make. And with slightly some reverb on top of it, because I thought it would be the fine thing to do, to give it like that airy feeling, that dreamy feeling, because that is literally what I was going for. So I'll just play this part and then we'll go over to here. You can even hear the piano like come up to give it, like I said, homage to the original track. Okay, so this is pretty much the lead from earlier on. This is pretty much the drop lead from the previous song, but this time with more reverb. And pretty much when this break part ends, it plays. I even put it together with this sound, which creates this effect. And of course I have these claps playing here, which are over here as well. This brings me to the next part, because you have this thing playing over here, which introduces the next part. And you have this up and down lifter, which I use a lot, which pretty much introduces us to the next part of the song. So pretty much, like I said, I've said it so many times now. Homage to the original song. Pretty much used everything from the original song, or the drop is entirely different. So let me just continue. Alright then, so before we go to the build up, pretty much like I said, same sounds. I add the drop bass from the original song to this part. You can even hear it. Like I said, pretty much from the same song. And then I add some more sounds. Yeah, this one was in the original song as well, but you couldn't really notice it. But I decided to make it more visible in this version of the song. And you have this playing, of course, which you heard earlier on. One of the drop layers from the OG song, and then we have the drop bass from the previous song, but a little bit different. Because in the previous one, it was just this. But in this version, the bass is a little different. And let's see, the claps, of course. We add some more claps. And some rides, of course. And then some rides and crashes mashed together. And then we have these playing again. For some reason, these two are on the top of each other. I don't know why, but it wasn't supposed to be like that. The song I spoke about earlier on, and of course the drop melody from the OG song, which is this one. I'm so proud of this lead, not gonna lie. Like, I remember working on Aspiration, and this melody was stuck in my head. Like, before even the song Aspiration even, became a thing. Like, I started working on Aspiration itself all the way back in September. And I didn't know what to do with it. And then all of a sudden, in November, I got this melody stuck in my head. And now fast forward to now, I made a remix of my own song. I've never done it before. I've never done something like this before. But I'm actually really proud of this. But yeah, to get back into it, the drop melody from the OG song, of course. But of course, we can't play it without the effects. So that's literally what we're going to do. Going to mute everything that's unnecessary. There we go. These as well. And then the bass. And of course these as well. So you're pretty much in the original song, just without the sidechain. And if you don't know what sidechain is, it pretty much keeps everything glued together and makes sure everything moves in the same motion. And of course, that's pretty much the right explanation, I would say. And then we go to the build up, which is nothing too special. Classic sound I always use in almost every song. And then there we have the drop drums. It's just one snare loop, I think. Yeah, it's just a snare loop. And of course we hear this very, very low sub. And then we have these snare drums. That's that. And of course these sounds also playing. As you can hear, everything is pretty identical to the OG song. So I kept a lot of things the same, really. This wasn't there though. Pretty much a rising sub bass. And of course this fill before the drop. And then we have this sound again. And something else you probably heard, I did the same thing as earlier on at the start of the break to give it that catchy feel again. So the melody like keeps, stuck in your head, because that's pretty much the goal, for the melody to be very catchy. And of course the same thing over here with that sound. But the delay, of course, but this time I got rid of the delay. I just let the delay be. I didn't really control it really. I just let it do its thing. And then we have this thing over here, which makes it very intense. But what that thing is, I could show it. It's called Endless Smile. And pretty much what it does, it makes sounds more intense and bigger than they are. Like this guy's teeth, for example. Like his mouth, for example. It also gets very big. Like you'll see him look sad. All sad. And like when he goes up, I'll just play it from the part where he goes up. You'll see his face change to that part. It's actually pretty funny. And then he goes back. And then he goes back to being sad. So it's pretty funny. There's a lot of options, but I mostly use the first version. Because the first preset, because that's the best version. And it's not too over the top. Because itself, the sound is pretty over the top. So that's why I just stick to the first version. But like I said, this sound makes the drop more anticipated. You're going to be more hyped because of it. You're going to be like, oh my god, the drop is coming, And that's how it should be. You should be hyping people up for the drop. And of course this bass still playing here. And yeah, we'll just go to the drop then. And of course I already explained this. It's the same as in the break really. Alright, so that's the drop. Like I said, pretty original. We have this lead. It's also in Flex. Flex is this plugin in FL Studio. It's very good. I really like it. I like the sounds it has, and they're very dreamy. Another layer, and of course the drop layer, the lead sound from the original song. Or at least one of the layers at least. And then we come to the most fun thing, the bass line. Oh, there we go. And this is the sub layer. Yeah, it's the sub layer. And then we have the top layer, the main layer, which is the reason you can hear it through your phone speakers if you're watching this through your phone speakers. And then we have this layer, which is from Flex 2, which is an 808, but I pretty much took out all the lows, so I cut out all the lows with an equalizer, because it was necessary. I had to, because otherwise it would clash with the sub frequencies. So as you can see, I cut out all the lows. It's only mids, which is also one of the reasons you can hear the bass on telephones, because otherwise, if we didn't have this, you would just hear. Hold on. It would just be like this. Oh my, didn't mean to lock it. Yeah, it would be like this. Which isn't bad either, but these two layers give it more impact. And for the bass line, I use this plugin called Massive. It's pretty old, but it does the job. And this preset is from one of the artists I listen to. He makes pretty cool music. He's called Mesto. Pretty underrated guy, very honestly. Like, he has close to 1 million, or he has 1 million streams by now, but he definitely deserves more. But this is pretty much his bass preset. He uses this in a lot of songs. And using presets from other artists is definitely allowed. It's not like I'm sampling it. It's just a preset he made in his plugin. And the sound itself isn't a plugin, but it's in a different name. However, this version is a little bit tweaked to sound like him. So it's pretty cool. I think it's called Justice. Not sure. I think it's called something like that. But yeah, Justice, something like that. And then he tweaked it and he made it this very bubbly type, dreamy type bass. And of course this as well. And the melody is pretty simple too. Like, it's literally, the bass line is so simple too. It's literally the drop bass, but I chopped it in pieces. That's all I did. Hold on. Like, that's all I did, literally. And then I went down to this octave. It's pretty much the drop bass. It's not too different, really. And then I chopped it. And of course, I added the sub bass later on, because without the sub bass, the song itself is pretty. The bass line itself is already good, but it will miss the low end, the the warmth of the bass, because the bass needs to be warm, right? Like if you listen to a song, where you expect there's going to be bass, and it's not going to be any bass, it will be very disappointing. So that's why I added this layer to make it sound more folk, because without it, it sounds like this. Like it sounds already pretty cool and pretty heavy, but with this, it sounds even heavier. You can just tell it sounds way more warm. That's exactly what we were going for. And then of course the melodies, like I said, the same stuff really. Didn't change too much on them. And then we have this kick drum, of course, which is the same kick but a little bit different. I added another kick on top of it. So now it's this. And then we have this. I have to let go over here. There we go. This is just the layer, I would say. And then we have this on top of it, giving it that punch that's necessary. Because it's supposed to go through the bass. If the kick doesn't go through the bass, then you're doing something wrong. Because the kick, keeps the song going. Because if I play this bass line without a kick, it will sound boring. Like right now, it sounds boring, but with the kick, it will keep your attention because the kick is there. So I'm going to play it together with the kick. So it's that, and then I have the delay turned on here, so that like every time this part of the drop ends, there's some delay happening. And I purposely merged them together, because actually it's supposed to be like this. So it doesn't go into each other, but I purposely let them go into each other, so like it gives that, like I said, more dreamy effects. The dreamier the better. The same thing with this automation, which takes care of the volume. It's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be like that. Like it just makes it feel more natural, more humanized, because it shouldn't sound like a robot on AI that made it. It should sound more lifelike. So that's why it's going through each other. And of course the reverb automation that I had in the OG song. Then the rides, of course, and the crashes I was talking about earlier on. Then I have these playing over here from the OG song, of course. And we have these claps in the drop doing their job as well. And then the clap I've been using in the break. And these are the loops that I'm using for the drop. Didn't want to go with something over the top, so I just picked that, and it sounded the most chill, and it had the best vibe. Because without it, it kind of makes the second drop, in general, without the percussion or these crashes and rides together, it would sound kind of soulless in my opinion. And without the claps too. But yeah, you know what? I'll just keep the claps. Or I'll just play it. And the reason I add these sounds together is to let people know that the second part is coming of this drop. Without it, you won't even know if the second part is there or not. So that's why I added all these things together to let the listener know that they're on the second part of the drop. And of course, course, you have the sound, this song playing in the background. There's another song playing. I think it's this one. Yep, you had it in the OG drop as well, and of course with the sidechain. So every time the chords and they cut off, it's the same thing in the OG song. And then we go to the second part, and this is pretty much homage to the OG song again. And this time I chopped up the melody. It was like that in the OG song already, but it was just used like a layer. But this time I decided to introduce the second part of the song with this sound. And the difference is that I added tiny notes. So you have a note here. It gives that little harmony, you know? And that harmony is very important. Because without it, it's still good, but it sounds like kinda boring. You know, and if you like add this tiny detail, you know, this tiny thing, it makes it more interesting, less boring. There, it sounds more alive, you know. And if I just, you know, if I leave it without those notes, it sounds kind of bland, kind of boring. And I have this sound playing, which is another layer. Then I have this playing. You know, the filtered chords from earlier on. The piano, but a little bit different. And we have this kick coming up from this part. And of course the R being back as usual. Because I thought it would, you know, it would sound good. You know, like, the song shouldn't be confusing. Like, if it's confusing, people won't be able to listen to it. And you know, it depends, you know, per genre, if you want to make it confusing or not. But like I said, I still want to let people know that they're listening to Aspiration, but just the edited version. You know, like, you gotta remind people, in a way, that they're on the same song. You know, like, I shouldn't let people forget that they're on the song Aspiration, the summer edit. So of course the second part should be recognizable, but also not entirely. It should be a little bit different. And that's why this melody, for example, this chord melody is a little bit different than this one. And then we'll just continue. With the kick, of course, getting louder. We have this bass over here, you know, giving the old rhythm, the rhythm of the OG song. And then we have these chords doing the same thing. You probably heard it earlier on. And then we have this melody playing earlier on, but we'll get to that in a bit. And of course these extra effects to make it more intense and to let, you know, the listener know we're going to the drop again. Prepare yourself, because that's why we, you know, most artists, most producers in general, add those effects, you know, to take you on a, you know, like a little trip, you know? Like if you go on a roller coaster, it goes up and down, and there's loopings and such. You get the point. So this part I delayed a little bit, because without the delay it would sound like this. Which sounds kinda boring in my opinion. But with the delay, the sound is coming in, but the sound is a little bit delayed. Because like I said, I was going for the dreamy slash trippy effect slash summery effect. And this sounds like a cold breeze, you know? And of course with the other melody playing at the same time to give it more impact, like I said. So that's that, and then we have these playing, and this one as well, and we have this playing to give it more impact, which is also the OG song. Now the bass is a little bit plucky, to let people know that we're going to the drop, or that there's going to be more action in the song. And then we have display, which is from the OG drop, of course, and this as well. And then we go to the build up, which is pretty much the bass I'm playing, but like a little different, because this one doesn't have the layer, but this one has the layer. This one doesn't have the layer, but this one has the drop layer. It's not very different. It doesn't sound as crunchy, but that's the purpose, you know, it's just introducing the bass again to remind you, oh, this is the bass line, from the drop. So that's why it sounds a little bit different. It sounds less bassy, of course. It's still very bassy, but less bassy than the drop version, of course. And then we have the melody repeating itself, like I said. Which is also like that in the beginning of this remix. And then we have the bass reintroducing itself. As you can see, this layer is not included. Like I said, it's just to introduce the bassline again. And we have this filter going along with this effect I was talking about earlier on, the very big, huge, hype effect. There we go. And of course we have this sound getting louder and louder, and we have this lifter which also does the job. And this is of course a different drum fill than earlier on, because like you said, you have to switch it up a little bit. If it's the same the entire time, the song might get very boring, and you shouldn't have that. As you can hear, the second drop is pretty different, but this time the melody I previewed over here, I put it in the drop instead. So like I said, because like I said earlier on, it has to be switched up a little bit. If it's not switched up, it will sound boring and bland. Like you can repeat it, but repeating it the entire time might get boring, because it's onto the second part of this part that you're hearing the melody again. But further, you're not hearing the melody. Because that's why I said you have to keep it fresh in a way. And then we have the bass and of course the chords. And this is the melody, of course. But of course this time there's a delay, like I said earlier on in the first drop. However, this time I didn't want them to overlap into each other. So this time I just kept them separate from each other. So you have the reverb playing, and the moment this melody ends, the melody, just gets all dreamy, all trippy. Like you just heard, it gets even more cheapier. And then I have the big effect over here again, you heard in the build up. And then we have the melody over here, like I said, the OG melody. And then you have these chords over here, giving it that warm feeling. Pretty much accompanying the warm bass line we have already. You know, get it? Because the summer is warm. And you have the melody as the cold breeze. And if you put them together, all these sounds together, you have this beautiful sound. And of course you have the big effect over here again. So let people know that the song is about to end. In the extended mix the sound is there too. But of course the extended mix is a little bit longer. It's a minute. The extended mix is like a minute longer. But it's also because this song is long as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it then. We have these drums playing again, the hi-hat loop. Which is also in the first drop. And that's pretty much it. It's not too different. It's pretty much still the same. The same elements as the first one. And then we go to the end of the drop. Which is pretty much me playing the chords from the intro. And like introducing it for the last time. And I kept the catchy melody from the drop to keep the person's attention, because that's very important. So the person is knowing, oh, like I said earlier on, oh, the song is about to end. How is the song going to end? So they have this certain curiosity towards the song. So this song just repeats all over and all over. And you have these drums playing as well. These are the rides, but these are the crash and the rides together. If you don't know what the crash and the ride are, those are pretty much two cymbals on a drum set. They make those sounds pretty much. If you like hit them with a drumstick, they make those kind of sounds. But anyway, let's continue. I should put the kick here, of course. I could have done them on beats, you know, like this. But like I said, I wanted to make it groovy. You know, like a little of beat ain't too bad, you know. If it sounds good, it sounds good. You know, that's what matters. And you have this bass playing in the background, but it's like very low volume. Along with these roads, these chords playing, and the sound still being here. It's the same melody. And that's pretty much the song itself. Yeah, that's really it. That's really it. I could go into the extended mix real quick, and then this video is pretty much done. Okay, so what I did in the extended mix is I used G kicks. So you have the top kick. This is the same one you hear in the drop. And you have this, which is a different version of the break kick. And then you have the drop kick. the one you hear in the drop, which is a little bit more boomier, more bassier. And we have these arps repeating themselves. Because that was actually my first idea for Aspiration. Like when I was making the song, I actually wanted to repeat the arps, but instead I changed my mind last minute, and then instead it became this. Which is still not bad, but now thinking about it, this part with the R's repeating would have sounded better in my opinion. But you guys like it the way it is, so I'm happy. You know, like if you guys like it, that's all that matters. Of course, like me liking it is also important. But if you guys like the way it sounds, you know, the way it is on Spotify, or if you like the song in general, oh good. So I'm not gonna complain about it then. It's just me as a producer thinking about things. You have this repeating again to keep it more interesting. It's over here again. The arps are different now. And you have this playing. Can't really hear it. But it's like chopped a little bit. And you have the different kick over here. For some reason it's on top of each other. I don't know why. You have the claps of course from the drums. And the other sounds from the drums. Pretty similar really. And then the med is like a little different over here. Then the riser from earlier on. The one I use in every song. And then we have the bass line that plays in the intro. Which is pretty much a break bass, and this is also the bass that inspired me to make the drop bass. Because as you can see, it looks very similar. However, the drop bass is more chopped. So I think that's pretty much it. I'll just play the intro and then I'll go for the outro. So that's that. Now we'll just go to the outro. So in the outro, as you can see, I'm keeping the drop bass line. And over here, it's the same bass line from the build up. It's also to let people know the song is about to end. But for everyone else, and the people that know about this, I make my extended mixes more interesting than the original song. Because I find it like, if you listen to this song, to the extended version, you know, I'll do more effort. Like in general, I put effort into my songs, of course, unless they're, you know, stupid or whatever, you know, like the unserious. Cause I had those songs too, the unserious ones. You know, like this moment, everybody makes unserious stuff, you know, for no reason. But in general, I make my extended mixes more interesting. You know, like you're taking the time to listen to the song for 30 seconds to a minute longer, so why not, you know, make it even more enjoyable for the person that's listening to it. And I'm not telling everyone that they shouldn't listen to the short version, but this is what you get if you listen to the long version. It will sound more interesting, more detailed, and of course more effort will be put in. So yeah, the bass line's a little different. We have this still playing, and this sound I was talking about earlier on. and you have the claps, and gradually some of the sounds disappear. Is this supposed to be gone? I don't think it's supposed to be missing. Oh well. The song is already out, so there's not much changes I can make really. But let's just continue. Oh yeah, I know why I did it. You know, to give it like, to like let it beat for a second, and then it will go back to the same sound. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I did it. So like, otherwise you'll be hearing this continuously, which will get boring. So that's why I got rid of it. So it isn't boring. Like I said, you have to switch it up a little bit. And this time, as you can see, I switched it up. Literally. I literally switched it up. And you have these sounds still playing over here. As you can hear over here, the sound is just going down. So the moment it plays, the volume goes down too. So that's that, and then you have the ARP still playing, the bass line, but without the top layer, of course. You still have this playing, and of course the hi-hat loop, and of course the up and down lift, and of course this sound's repeating itself, like I said earlier on. That's exactly why I have it turning down, cause near the end it shouldn't get too loud. So that's pretty much the outro. It's just the bass line repeating itself. It's just that. That's all it does. This repeating itself as well. That's a classic thing to do if the song is going to an end. And over here it's the same thing. And you have this playing as well. But slowly decreasing in sound, and so is the bass line. You can even hear it. So that's that really. You know, like this song, the sound of the lead, of course, like I said earlier on. It starts ending over here, and then you have the kick drum being different as well. Different kick, same clap, and of course the Rhodes, aka the chords or piano, however you want to call it, start decreasing in volume too. Alright, that's it then. This is the longest explanation I've ever done on a song of mine. It's been 1 hour in total of me explaining this. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. As usual, make sure to use my code in the item shop. It's on the screen right now. If you came this far, make sure to like and subscribe, of course, and follow me on Spotify if you don't do that yet, because my music will always appear there first instead of YouTube. So again, thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned a lot from this. If there's questions, make sure to ask them in the comment section. I'll answer all of them. I don't mind doing so. And yeah, that's it. Peace. Have a good one. Take good care of yourself. And make sure, of course, to hydrate. See you guys in the next one.